Emma Webb. Emma, I think I'm right in saying you're not a Catholic, that you are a churchgoer. I mean, not that you have to do the required qualifications to comment on this story necessarily. There is a sense, perhaps, that the Pope is, I think it's the third time in as many weeks he's weighed in on the subjects, culture war subjects. Are you surprised by that? And does anybody listen?
Well, I think people are certain this has certainly drawn a lot of attention to the issue, with the Pope coming out and saying this so straightforwardly. And as you mentioned already, in December, he came out against some European guidance that really wanted to sort of, I suppose, give guidance to police people's language using human, I think it was human-made rather than man-made. And at the time, he also used the phrase ideological colonization. And in setting this in the context of the culture wars, as you mentioned already there in your interview with George Galloway, you were talking about the Black Bitch pub, which is obviously named after a black dog from the town. This is obviously coming within the context of a lot of this that has been going on within institutions, not only in the UK, but all around the world. And cancel culture isn't a word that is a term that is particularly popular in Italy. It's more something from the Anglophone countries. But he's raising awareness of a situation that is occurring across our public institutions, across all spheres of life, and particularly and specifically mentioned the impact of this on freedom of speech, and as well its impact on the underlying cultural roots of our society. At the time when he was responding to the European guidance, he was also responding to the fact that they wanted to get rid of the mentions of Christmas, for example. So for him to come out and say this, I think raises a lot of awareness all around the world, but particularly within Italy, because, as I say, this isn't a phrase that is commonly used there.
Yeah, for him to come out and say this, Emma, for some people perhaps the more secular wing of things, will strike them as ironic, maybe even hypocritical, as the leader of a church that brought you things like the Index of Prohibited Books.
Well, he's got some expertise in the area, I think. It's absolutely. I mean, it's quite surprising, I think, also coming from Pope Francis, because he has shown himself to be, if you compare him to the previous Pope Benedict, he's shown himself to be a very progressive world leader, really. So for him to come out and say this, and as I mentioned already, you know, he was referring to the cancelling of our history. We've seen this with recent debates around Colston and other historical figures like Sir Winston Churchill. He spoke about the need to not use, as he put it, the hermeneutics, which is a theological term referring essentially to the methodology by which you approach particular texts. He said we shouldn't be using the hermeneutics of our time to interpret history. So he's making a really bold statement here, following on from the statements that he made in December. And certainly you're right, I think perhaps he has certain expertise in that department.